All right, everybody. Well, welcome to our first online class session. I'm going to walk you through how to do the metacognitive portfolio today. So the first thing I'm going to do is just quickly go to Blackboard and show you where to go to find all of the materials that I'm using today. So if you go to Blackboard and you go to Assignments and Project Descriptions and Links, you're going to find this link right here that says Metacognitive Self-Study. That's going to be the first link that we're going to use. And when you click on the document here, it's going to pull this up. I'm going to walk you through all of this here in a second. But before I do that, I'm going to take you over to Course Materials. And throughout this, I'm going to reference a sample. And if you go here, there are some sample metacognitive projects. And if you click on that, you can see a sample from a variety of content areas. So we have art, science, and I would need to go look at this one really quickly to see what we have here. I didn't label it. So actually this was one of my originals for physical education. So, but you can definitely look at these as samples. I also have some other samples on the Blackboard throughout. Here's another portfolio sample right here. I've just been sort of collecting them over the course of multiple semesters. So lots of samples for you to look at. So we'll get started by going through the project first. So this sheet right here, the one that is found in the assignment link, will pretty much tell you everything that you need to do throughout the course of this project. So to start off with, the purpose of this really links to a lot of the things that we've been doing in class up to this point, but the whole idea comes down to that piece I was telling you all about velocitation, and that often we're so far ahead of our students when we get to the classroom, and that it's really important to become aware of the tools and strategies that we're using as learners and readers to make that clear for our students. So the purpose of this is that opportunity to slow our thinking down and to figure out what tools and strategies that we're using as readers when we read in our content. And the reason we want to do that is so that we can better plan for teaching our students how to use those same techniques. So the first thing you're going to do is set goals for reading the book. And you're going to set those goals over the course of 4 weeks. We'll do a journal each week and then a summary. And so you want to plan to have the book read over the course of 4 weeks. So I'd like for you to have your book selected sometime in the next, maybe by next Wednesday. And then we'll have the due dates coming up after that. And to show you what that looks like, setting those goals for yourself is going to be pretty simple. It's going to look like this. So you're going to set a reading schedule and key. You're going to put in the dates that you plan to do the reading and which pieces you're going to read. So if you look at this one, this person actually selected a science journal for their piece of reading, and they had broken it down into pieces of the journal. So the abstract and introduction would be the first week, results and discussion would be the second, materials and methods the third, and supplemental reading the fourth. You're going to do basically the same thing. You may have chapters that you're picking out. You may have select pages that you're picking out. Whatever's going to work for you. And really you want to set yourself reading goals that you can achieve. So think about all of your responsibilities, all of your coursework that you have in your other classes, and then pick goals for yourself that you think you can achieve in the text. So for narrative text, you may have longer sections of text that you plan to read. You might divide a book into fourths. If you're reading informational text, you may just read a chapter. Or if it's very long chapters, you may even divide the chapter into 4 pieces. You're going to pick pieces of the text that are reasonable for you based on what the text is. So you're going to set those goals for yourself and create just a little reading calendar for what you plan to achieve. And then you're going to read and document in the process. And so over the course of this project, you're going to do 4 journals. 3 of those journals will be for your own text, and 1 of those will be cross-content. I will have you swap your text with another person from another content. And so 3 of them will be for your own text, 1 cross-content. So a total of 4 journals. This is often confusing People often think that they have to do 4 for their own text and an additional one. But if you look here, it's 3 journals for your own text and 1 cross-content. Our metacognitive meetings are going to be one of those pieces of this class that are going to be online. And so these will be done on Blackboard. And the idea is these are opportunities to discuss the books in the process of reading with your peers. And then at the end, you're going to select this short excerpt and do a cross-content swap with someone. And I'll talk more about that as I move through this. So as I get here, the creating a reading plan, that's what I showed you before. But I want to talk a little bit about what kind of text you're going to pick. For this project, you want to pick text that's relatively within your content area. It's not about teaching your content area, but it's text that you may be reading for your content area. It's also not something that you would be assigning your students. What I'm looking for is something that's mildly challenging for you as a reader. So something that forces you to tap into those strategies. If it's something that's too easy for you, it's going to be really hard for you to figure out what strategies you're using in order to uncover those. And so you need to pick text that is slightly challenging for you, not necessarily something that you would assign your students. There are lots of good opportunities here when selecting text to think about what kind of text, or it might be something, sorry, I got distracted for a second. When you're thinking about the kind of text that you're going to use here, you have tons of opportunities to pick. So you might pick something that you've just been wanting to read, or something that you got in a class but never had a chance to read, or something you got in a class but didn't understand very well the first time. One thing that I would try to dissuade you from is picking a text that you're reading for a class right now. The only reason I would encourage you not to do that is because you're going to be reading for this one purpose of trying to uncover strategies. And that's going to make it really difficult for you to recognize the other things that your professors are asking you to do with those texts. And so generally you have a purpose for reading that's given to you in those classes. And it's really hard to have a double purpose. And so I would definitely suggest not picking something that you're using for class. However, if you do, honestly, 1, I won't know, and 2, that's your choice. But pick something that interests you, pick something that intrigues you, a topic that you really enjoy within your content, but is also slightly challenging. Then you're going to create that reading plan that I showed you. You're going to decide on an approach to how you're going to monitor your strategies. I often suggest to people that they read and annotate in a way that they're comfortable with, and then go back and look to see what strategies that they're using. It's a lot harder to read specifically with those strategies in mind and then trying to go back. So I would definitely read first, annotate, and if you don't have a plan for annotation, I would certainly try to come up with one. I do have in the Blackboard course materials section a piece of reading by somebody named Mortimer Adler, and he gives some really good techniques for annotating text. That would definitely be a worthy read if you don't currently have a system for annotating. You're going to use your notation system or notebook system throughout the reading process, making notes to how you're using strategies in your reading. And then you're going to type up a weekly journal that reflects on the process. And there are a couple things here. One, it says stems on the next page are intended to help, and how you read are going to include the strategies from Lipson-Wixon. So we're coming back to that and looking at those strategies that are mentioned in Lipson-Wixon. One of the things that's important to note is that you will not use all of the strategies, and that's okay. Certain kinds of text don't necessitate every single strategy, and so just become familiar with the ones that you are using. So I'm going to show you 2 things. One, I'm going to show you the stems on the next page, and then I'm going to show you a sample. So these are the stems, and there are some examples of how to use an annotation system, and then some sentence stems that will help you get started with things like making connections, predicting and inferring, visualizing. When you're going to write about these things, if you can't think of how to get started, you might say, when I read the text, I made this connection. This reminds me of ... whatever it is that it reminds you of. It might remind you of another text or something that happened to you, things like that. And so these are good ways to get started in how to write those within your paper. You can also go look at the samples that I've provided for you. And when you look at the samples, you're going to see two things. One, you're going to see a sheet on the front that's the checklist. Actually, you're going to see three things. You're going to see the metacognitive summary. This is actually what you do at the end of this process. And then you're going to start to see the journals. These are your weekly journals. So you're going to have a weekly journal that is about a page in length where you summarize what you're doing in the text and what strategies you're using. In the first journal, I definitely want you to introduce what you're reading, give an idea of the name of the text, what it's about, things like that. This one actually doesn't say the name of the text here in the beginning. I certainly would like that. So what are you reading? Then tell me a little bit of what it's about and sort of why you chose it in that first journal. Then you're going to move into strategy usage. So for instance, this one identifies the first technique I used was visualizing. Now, I don't want you to stop there. I want you to tell me what you visualized. So the abstract stated that only 49% of infectious diseases have the necessary data to properly map. This gives me specific examples from the text of what they're going to explain about visualizing. Then they come back to, I pictured a pie graph and thought all about that is still unknown in dealing with infectious diseases. So they gave me the technique they're using. They told me what they where it came from in the text or when they used that technique or when they used that strategy. And then they told me what they visualized. This is exactly what I'm looking for you to do with each journal is what's the strategy? When did you use it in the text? How did you use it? And that's what you're going to write about in each of the journals. And this is also important down here. They said, I thought I was going to use this, and maybe I did, but it was so innate I didn't catch it. And so making any kind of reflection or commentary on strategies that maybe you thought you were going to use or that you were surprised that you used or anything like that. Okay, so now I'm going to come back to our list, and this is where we are. So then each week after you do your journal, you're gonna post it on your online metacognitive discussion board group, and I'm going to put these together for you, so that they'll be set up in groups on Blackboard, and I'll show you how to get to that next week. And you're going to post your journal on the discussion board, and then you're going to have a conversation with each other. In your group, you're going to give feedback, you're going to swap ideas, you're going to ask questions, and you're just going to engage in general discussion around each of your journals, talking about what you used, how you used it, what you're reading, how you like it. And for each of those discussions, I'll post some questions to help guide you in the conversations that you have in your group. Once you're done with your 3 journals, you have that text swap journal. And for that, you're going to select a short excerpt from the text that you've read, and you're going to swap it with a person from a different content area. And I'll assign you a partner to do that text swap with. And then you're going to basically engage in sort of the same kind of journal that you did with the ones of your own. But you're also going to look at how did you adjust your strategies when reading text from a different content? And what did you learn from the swap that you do with another person? So in addition to identifying the strategies and when and how you use them, I want you to reflect on how was that different from when you were reading in your own content and what you learned from that. The last piece is going to be to type a final summary. And in this summary, you're going to journal about the process and show evidence of trends you found. And in it, essentially, you're just going to answer these 4 questions. How did you do in achieving it? What did you learn? What did you learn about reading outside your subject? And how will you use this? So if you go to our sample here, we have our summary right here. And they didn't use the highlighter in this one in particular, but I am happy with the highlighting that they used throughout. It's pretty clear to see which ones, which strategies they were using most often. I know that when I look at this, the yellow on this one is making connections, and it's pretty clear when I quickly scan through this to see that that was probably the most common strategy that they used. So then the metacognitive summary, it's about a 2-page summary answering those questions that I pose. Then you're going to assemble the portfolio. And basically, to help you figure out what that's supposed to look like, there's a checklist right here. And this tells you exactly what everything is supposed to have to put together the portfolio. So you're going to have this sheet on top. Then you're going to have the summary. The summary answers these questions. You have the reading plan. It's filled out, your journal entries, and you guys can finish reading the rest of this. But if you have this checklist done, then you will probably have a well-assembled portfolio. And the portfolio will be electronic. You're going to upload that online in the assignments section. And that's pretty much it. So that's how the metacognitive portfolio is supposed to look and what you're supposed to do with it. And really everything you need is on this sheet. And if you look at the samples as a mentor text to help you figure out what it's supposed to look like, you'll be in good shape as you move into this project. If you have any questions about texts or about what you're supposed to do with this, please feel free to ask. Again, if you're elementary ed or special ed or speech therapy, you have free reign. You can pick text from a variety of content areas. If there's a novel you've been dying to read, you can look at that. But often I tell people to pick text, if they're going to be teaching a variety of contents, sometimes it helps to pick a text in an area that they're not as comfortable with. And so, again, that's open to you. But if you're in those special ed, elementary ed, speech therapy, you may decide to pick something that's going to really challenge you. So that's pretty much the end of my explanation of the metacognitive self-study. If you have any questions, please feel free to send me an email, and hope you all have a nice weekend. Thank you very much.